or good day, everyone, depending on when you are watching. Welcome to Books in the World, a production of the Cape Cod Writers Center. I always like to say that the Cape Cod Writers Center is in its 55th year of being an organization on Cape Cod that attracts people who are writing books. Today we're having a little bit of a departure. We're having selling books be our topic. We have Jim Visbeck of Isaiah Thomas Books. Welcome, Jim. It's delightful to have you.
Thank you.
I have been to your store many times and enjoy myself tremendously, and I've even brought some of the things that I've bought. And we're going to talk about the whole world of buying books for the bookstore, selling books if you're selling to a bookstore, whole world of things. First of all, Isaiah Thomas Books is in Cotuit, and it's called the Pink House, and it's a pink Victorian house.
Oh yes, which bookstore is that? The pink one.
The pink one,
yes.
The pink Victorian house at Route 130. There it is, right there on the T-shirt.
Okay.
Thank you, Jim. Jim, first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself and your book-selling world.
Well, it's not a job.
Where to start? It's not a job.
Not a job. It's. When I was a kid, I remember drawing a bookstore. For some reason, it was called Mad Anthony's Bookshop. I liked the name of the sound of that. So I always thought I wanted to run a bookstore. And I'm still having the best life possible, because every job I've ever had, somebody has asked me, will you do this? I was in my hometown library in Uxbridge so often that the librarian said, kid, you're here so much, we ought to put you to work.
Yeah.
Oh, it was great. And I've worked in 4 libraries since then. I worked for Irving Ephraim in Worcester, who was 50 years in business. Before that, I worked at Worcester Public Library, but I was every noontime next door at Irving Ephraim's bookshop, and he said, Kid,
would you like a job?
So, yes, he did. And so I became much more than a glorified clerk typist in the Worcester Public Library, and earned lots more money by working for Mr. E as a bookshop. Mr. E had a terrible fire, and one of his best customers said to me, we ought to do this. We ought to open up a bookshop in Worcester.
So where did you get the inventory? Did Mr. E lose all his books? Or?
Well, he lost most of them.
Yeah.
Because of that fire. But I had books, and my late partner, Reverend Blaine Taylor of Centerville, and then of Worcester, had books. So we opened a small shop. There was no more used bookshop in Worcester. So it's been wonderful.
So you came from Worcester to the Cape. Describe the process that led you here and tell us the history of the house.
Reverend Taylor was the head of the largest Methodist church in New England, which was in Worcester. And then he was a district superintendent in the Methodist church. Then he decided, enough already, we're going to calm down and not travel all over the country. And so he took a smaller church here in the Cape, in Centerville, and he said, let's go both to the Cape. So he found this wonderful house in Cotuit, and part of the Crocker families in Cotuit. It was Santuit, actually. And we moved the books from a beginning in 1969 in Worcester to, we moved the books in 1990 back here to Cotuit.
Now the house you mentioned, and somewhere I read, it was a Crocker house, and there were 5 Crocker houses.
Yes.
And
yep.
Can you talk a little, this is a Cape show, and people are into Cape history, I know for sure.
Well, across the street from me was slightly earlier Crocker House. We're at the junction of Route 130 on Route 28. And those 4 buildings, 2 of them are antique shops,
Yeah.
red buildings, and at the traffic light at 130 on Route 28. And then there are smaller buildings in between, but the big old tavern has been a restaurant for many, many years, now still a restaurant. And that's red as well, and I'm across the street from the large restaurant. And I painted it pink, because I used to drive by it with myself, and I couldn't see it. So
I can't miss it now. Somehow you're showing us that, and there's this postcard and little bookmarks and
Yes.
good things that you do good marketing with for your store. But while we're talking about the intersection of Route 130 and Catuit and 28, I know I live nearby, and that's becoming a destination in itself. The Cahoon Museum is remodeled,
yes,
and
yes.
there's the Chapman Art Gallery, which is new, and the restaurant, as you said. It's really perked up.
2 antique shops and a chiropractor. And
Well, I don't know what he's
facials
doing there, but
yeah, so
but while you mentioned the antique shops, I went into the one on the corner there once recently. It reminds me of where I want to come back to talk about your books. These are the real things. This is not your junk shop or tag sale, or these are bona fide collector's items, as are many of your books. This is not your library book sale. You're not going to find the $5 book. You might find a few at $5, but not the $1 or the $3 book there.
we have always been a general use bookshop. We have about 70,000 books. But with the advent of the internet, no one's going to come to my shop for a $3 book. They're going to go online and still in their pajamas and buy the book there. So I have been working more and more to be a destination shop, part of that marketing there, because the only thing that's really selling now is a collectible. So I'm trying my darndest to find, and the word now today is curate.
Curate.
A good collection of worthwhile books. My former boss, Mr. Ephraim, I mean, he started during the Depression and he had everything. So I've handled many, many, many thousands of books.
Yeah.
And you get a sense after a while of what's good.
Yeah. Well, as a lot of people know, I was a librarian, and I almost had the similar philosophy at the library. Well, the library tends to do that anyway. I mean, you curate with the needs of the community in mind,
Yep.
and you try to be a little bit for everybody. But you also try to have that one thing that is going to make people say, aha, this is great. Now, I have a few things that I've bought at your store right here, and I could go on and on about what I've bought at your store. But this is an edition of Hans Christian Andersen, and I wasn't going in there to look for Hans Christian Andersen, but I saw this beautiful edition, and I bought it, and I hope that I'll spend some good time reading to my grandkids or something. I'm delighted to have it. So curating takes a lot of knowledge, and knowledge of the community as well, I think. You know, there are things that you might not want in your store because they're not, if it's about mining in Montana, you may not find an audience
I
for
do
it.
try to, as far as my new books, which I maybe 1% new books and 99% used, but I do try to find local books, things that are self-published by local authors and local subjects. We always have in stock Captain Peck's For Golden Friends I Had, all about Catuit, and other books which are locally written by just about Catuit and Cape Cod.
Yeah. You mentioned that the Cape Cod collection is something you feel dedicated to. You said, if I don't buy them, who will? I mean, after a while, if you're going to get a reputation if you don't already have it. I'll go to Isaiah Thomas for books about Cape Cod. It's a good handle. I like that.
Well, I was the only serious bookseller, used bookshop, I consider serious used bookshop, with great effort in Worcester, around Worcester County. There are lots of small bookshops, but we're going to do it, let's do it. I made an effort to have, I even republished Isaiah Thomas's History of Worcester County.
Okay.
Because I found the text of that in sheets, unbound sheets. I could give that to the printer. You could unfold it and print it right away. And so, local history is important.
Well, just a slight departure, just to jump back into fiction, but this is fiction about Cape Cod. I was in your store and I saw this. It's called Resuscitation of a Hanged Man by Dennis Johnson. Now, Dennis Johnson just died. He's a novelist of considerable, wonderful reputation. And I said, well, I didn't know what is he doing here? I kind of said. And then I bought it, took it home, and I read this review, and it said that this was a minor masterpiece of New England local color literature. I'm just delighted. I wouldn't have known about the book, and to get such a rave review, and I found it in your store. It was published in maybe the 60s or the 80s or something like that. It's not something you're going to find just anywhere, I guess. So why would people bring books to you? I mean, what kind of books do you see when people are trying to sell books to you?
Well, I mostly see people bring me old books. And I don't really buy so many old books merely because they're old. Because a book is valuable not because it's sold. The book is valuable for three reasons. It is beautiful, which includes condition. It's important in no matter what field, and it's scarce. So because a book is old doesn't make it scarce.
Okay. Well, we have two examples on the table here. One is old and one is scarce. So which one would you like to talk about first?
Oh, well, this is one of my prizes. Everybody would know this book, Gone with the Wind. This is a facsimile dust jacket, I'm afraid, but I had to brighten it up a little bit. But I always look at every single copy of Gone with the Wind because they all look like this. They're gray.
Oh, my.
I mean, there must have been 60 printings in the same binding. They all look like this. But it will tell you on the copyright page which edition it is. But this one is signed by Margaret Mitchell.
By Margaret Mitchell, and she has a beautiful handwriting.
Yes.
As a matter of fact.
So, I mean, it is a first, and it is signed, and it's a famous book. So we've got beauty, well, not so hot, but I've spiffed it up with a...
But it maybe never was a beautiful edition in the sense that it was a novel, 60 printings. Maybe it didn't have the care that a different kind of book might have. But I don't want to go too far into the subject of price, but this you can't walk out of this, buy this too easily, from you or anybody.
Or anybody, not a signed copy.
It's a very dear purchase. You have to really
want it.
So
it's an important book. It's in the first printing. It's a scarce book, and it has all the. Well, if it was a little, and there's It even has a point of issue on the dust jacket, this facsimile dust jacket, which make it even more important because after it's got going and got selling, they put a review on the back of the dust jacket.
Okay.
Well, that's not the first time it was issued. That's this, they said, this has got
Okay.
good reviews. Let's tout this on its jacket.
I just have to look at this. Did they blurb authors in those days?
Well, it
no.
did. Well,
Not
this
on
is
this one.
this is the first issue of the dust jacket without a blurb. Just the
was this her
Macmillan
first
spring
book?
novels.
Was this Margaret Mitchell's first book?
Yes.
Oh
yeah.
my goodness! So there's no famous author saying this is the best book since Tolstoy.
No.
That's funny. Okay, so beauty, scarcity, and importance. Those
Yep.
are the things to look
And
for.
not age. Not
And
age
not
at all.
age. Okay,
No.
great lead-in because I have this book here,
Okay.
which is definitely beautiful. This book is an edition of The Alhambra by Washington Irving. And it's got gilt, what do you call this?
Sure,
On
yeah.
pages.
Yeah, almost gilt, yeah.
It's got, everything is framed. And
It's got a decorative cover.
it was published in 1892. So
Mm-hmm.
give me your excellent opinion of this book.
I have a corner in my shop which I call the Victorian corner. Now, when you're collecting books, you don't have to spend thousands of dollars to enjoy a book. You can buy a book for reading, of course, but I have a lady that comes in and just buys green books, but decorative green books. Now, this is decorative. It was white at one time.
Yeah.
I recognize when you first showed it to me, so this is 2 volumes, and you said, only have volume 1. Well,
Forget you.
What are you going to do? But I have a corner in my shop just with decorative bindings. He said, lovely. What do you get today? I mean, even back then, there's a gray cover for Gone with the Wind. So the turn of the century is a very good collecting period, just because they're beautiful. Margaret Armstrong, some of them are signed bindings. The most common one, some of the most beautiful ones were done by a woman named Margaret Armstrong, and she would sign it M.A. And they are absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous books.
Yeah.
And for books in ordinary condition, so-so condition, you can buy a Margaret Armstrong binding for $10, and they are wonderful.
There's the disappointment.
Well,
Yeah. Oh, really?
well, it's no longer white. Come on.
It's no longer even rare. I mean, this book
No.
I think my father had this and probably bought it in Spain or something like that, and I have looked it up before. This cover, the creator of this cover is a known person, and this is on microfilm in the Boston Public Library. This artist is even known and noted. Mm-hmm. And this book, you can get it for $30 on the internet, you know, or less, depending on the. I think you can get both volumes for $30.
Yeah,
so
probably,
it's a disappointment.
Oh,
and,
well,
you know.
depending on condition, there are specialists now in trade bindings, they're called, which research them and have immaculate copies, and an extraordinary copy, which hardly exists anymore, will cost you 10 times $10 for a Margaret Armstrong, and like it was never looked at, put away in a drawer.
Wow.
So that's part of it. Beauty is part of the, and condition is part of the value of a book. So frayed and cracked and,
Yeah.
you know.
Keep it out on your coffee table.
You bet.
And I mentioned to you that I've been to other vendors like yourself, merchants or antiquarian booksellers, who will, just as quickly as you, will look and say, I think you should take it home and keep it and enjoy it. That's as far as they go. No, I'm not buying that. You know,
Yes,
just take it
I've,
home and enjoy it.
Yes, I've been trying over the years to let people down easily, thinking this is probably has more sentimental value than retail value.
Yeah, yeah.
But you never could, I'll be happy to look at anything people want to show me, because I know I didn't read the inscription in there, but
It's in Spanish.
it's in Spanish.
It's
Well,
actually in Spanish.
it might have been Diego Rivera or somebody, and that would make it all the better.
No, well, it's not signed by a person, and it says "to my son" or something like that.
Ah,
But it is 1892.
well,
So, your experience is extraordinary. I'm impressed by how quickly you can pick up a book and just know it.
that's a lot of fun.
A lot of fun.
Yeah.
Before I forget, I wanted to talk about a collection that's in your store that I've never seen anyplace. There are those little they're called permabound books.
Oh, well, I even have the bookcase. Somebody offered me a paperback bookcase, which I have prominently displayed, and it does say 35 cents, permabound, 35 cents. These were some of the first paperbacks, and that was from the first paperback racks, first paperbacks ever published in the U.S. The box on the floor by that bookcase actually has Armed Services editions, which are oblong paperbacks. Now, those were precursors to America's great love affair with the paperback. This is during the war.
One or two?
World War II.
Okay.
We had to send off reading to the GIs, and that's perfect for a back pocket or a pack or a vest shirt pocket.
Yeah, they were
And-
pretty small.
Yeah, they were small, and the type was small and all that, but there were some very famous, Hemingway and Faulkner were published in there, and even some science fiction, very scarce. The big names like Hemingway and Faulkner and I forgot the science fiction.
You had some pretty racy-looking novels, and I Spy, and
Oh,
I
yes.
don't know, bodice bursters or whatever you call that.
Yeah, when the GIs came back, the market for the general population was there. So let's have some more of these paperbacks. And so that's when all that started, Simon & Schuster. And I do now buy books just for their cover sometimes. I once said to a fellow book dealer, you know what I feel like doing? All those racy novels of today with all those clinches on the cover, This is, nobody buys those anymore, but I say I should buy a whole bunch of those and take off those covers and make a collage or put them in my bathroom or something. She said, I said, no, today that's sexist. You don't want to do that.
No.
But the cover art are spectacular.
On those
Just
little
spectacular.
ones.
Yeah, on the newest or the newer than Armed Service Editions paperbacks. Yeah, they're absolutely wonderful. The science fiction titles are out of this world.
I didn't ask you, how much do those cost to buy, if I have to buy one in your store, if I wanted one? Does it depend on which one it is?
Oh, yes, depends on how the condition, how good it looks.
Yeah.
I mean, we looked at a copy of Catcher in the Rye.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's before there was that red cover, which is now, so famous. It had a portrait or some figures in there, and that was a cover for a long time. But it's beat up, so I think it's only like $5.
Yeah.
If that was in nice shape, it would be $15, $20. But it's condition.
But I wanted you to talk about the range of subjects that you have, that we've talked about some popular things and some not, but you have some serious history, you have religion.
Oh, yes.
The Native American collection is pretty big there, or the local tribes.
I've chased local authors for their books on the Wampanoags and other New England Native Americans. Oddly enough, the busiest aisle in my shop has philosophy on one side and religion on the other.
Goodness. It's the busy, well, serious readers, I
Serious
guess.
readers.
Serious collectors.
You know, when I came from Worcester, I thought I'd be selling Mary Higgins Clark, you know, for people going to the beach, but no.
Yeah.
Plus, there are wonderful books here in the Cape. Lots of authors live here, retired here, ministers, artists. So when and scientists, my goodness, Woods Hole scientists. So I'm very grateful that people come to me when they have an estate to sell or weeding out. There were wonderful books on the Cape, and I'm doing my darndest to find the most interesting.
Good for you. Now, I have to ask you, this is one of your marketing pieces that lists the hours that you're open, which are all the time now.
All the time now, yes.
Yeah.
Every day, closed
people.
on Mondays, off season.
But at the back of this wonderful bookmark, you have something I'm going to ask you to read.
Okay.
Please.
Well, I also had a magnet that said, and people say, I've got your magnet on the fridge. Warning, rare book pox, highly contagious. There is no known cure. Infection is characterized by dizziness, sweaty palms, and the compulsive reading of rare books catalogs, accompanied by apnea and lust. Further symptoms are loss of home, living space, and self-induced poverty. If infected, do not see your doctor, but seek local aid. Seek aid from your local antiquarian book dealer who, while unable to effect a cure, can provide symptomatic relief.
Wonderful. Well, we're at the end of our time together.
Oh, that's so
Thank
short.
you for coming. We had a wonderful time. I've had a wonderful time every time I've been in your store. I take my guests now. It's sort of part of, you know, we go to this beach and that beach, and then we go to the bookstore.
Everybody comes to my store at 4 o'clock. Get off the beach, and I am crowded at 4 o'clock. I'm grateful.
Thank you for coming, and I wish you well. I think we need you and your store and 70,000 books that you might not find anywhere else. As I've tried to tell all of you, I've found things. Cookbooks, don't forget. Anyway, you have a nice cookbook, like children's book collection.
Oh, yes.
I have the complete Madeline, my own name. So it's been fun finding things there.
I thank you for patronizing me. I wouldn't be there without local help.
Thank you.